Did you want to hear about my favorite movies?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's talk about your movies.
Okay. Not gonna take too long, but I'm just gonna say like there's like so, there's movies that people are they accept to be acclaimed, like Casablanca, Citizen Kane, right? Vertigo, right? All those films, 2001. But for me, those aren't necessarily my favorite films because it's films that they're good films to watch, but I wouldn't watch them like all the time, right? It's like, okay, something I watch once, I enjoy it, and it's good. So my favorite films are like films I watch like over and over again.
Oh yeah.
So actually, for this, I think a lot of the directors we named, they have good films that we can watch like
over and over and over.
Some of them, not all of them. Like not all of them I would watch over and over, but like some of them I watch over and over. So, but I list some movies that are not directed by the directors too, like Back to the Future. I really like that movie.
That's Zemeckis.
Yeah. Airplane, I love that movie. I think it's probably the best comedy ever, just because it's the classic and the humor in it's so classic. Enter the Dragon, right? For the martial arts film, that film is a template for which all other martial arts films are basically based off of. That tournament held in some secret location, right? You got to defeat all these fighters and stuff. Game of Death, right? They follow a lot of. You'll find a lot of other martial arts films. They follow the same template that Bruce Lee did. Yeah, I like American Graffiti. I think that's that film kind of takes me to like, oh, I'm living the 60s, San Francisco, or yeah. So that kind of brings me into that atmosphere. So, and then yeah, classic films. I would watch those a lot. I don't know. I like a lot of the it also depends on the actors too. So like Humphrey Bogart is one of my favorite actors. So I watch Maltese Falcon. I watch. Was on the big what was it Night in a Lonely Place, right? The Big Sleep, those ones, and some other good films like Marlon Brando, right? So he had On the Waterfront or The Godfather, although I wouldn't watch The Godfather like multiple times or anything. That's a long movie. What else? Like James Dean, Rebel Without a Cause is a classic one. Marilyn Monroe, I like her in Some Like It Hot. Then so 60s, like Breakfast at Tiffany's, because I like Audrey Hepburn. This is a classic film. The Graduate, that movie, Dustin Hoffman. Yeah, that's another classic movie. Watch sometimes. Star Wars, obviously. So yeah, those are films I watch over. 80s, I got Blade Runner, Empire Strikes Back. Obviously, we saw that one together. Probably the most iconic Star Wars film. We said Back to the Future, Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark is probably the best in my opinion. So that one's classic. And then there's these other movies that are kind of like coming of age dramas, like Lucas is a good one. Not very well known. The Goonies.
Oh, I remember The Goonies.
Yeah. Breakfast Club, 16 Candles.
That's the John Hughes movies.
Yeah. Taxi Driver, that movie.
That's a coming of age movie?
No, not a coming of age. I'm just listing movies around that era now. No, that wasn't coming of age. I remember Jodie Foster in that movie. No, and then what else? 90s, Pulp Fiction. I watched that a few times. Matrix, Office Space is my favorite. American Beauty, I like that movie too. Like the 90s is probably the last decade I would say had the movies that really made you think. Big Lebowski,
Memento.
Yeah, Memento. And another one of my favorite movies is Who Framed Roger Rabbit. That was one of my favorite films because it was like the first time, I think, at least to me, like for the movies that I've seen, this was the first time that a movie studio took like live action characters and mixed it with animated characters, right? And this was also the only movie that had Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse in the same movie, dude. Like, this was that's probably why they don't have a sequel, is getting all the licenses for all these different characters and stuff. But yeah, I think this is the only movie that had Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny in the same movie. And it was just, it was very original for the time, right? Just having, and still to this day, right, having live action and animated characters. I mean, later on, they had other movies that kind of did similar things, right? All the Looney Tunes back in action, Space Jam, but this movie, I think it was the best one out of all these different kinds of movies, right? Who Framed Roger Rabbit was. It was kind of like a one-off. Like, I know they wanted to make Roger Rabbit a thing, but it turned out just being a one-off movie. But it was a really good movie, right? So yeah, I really liked Who Framed Roger Rabbit as well. And Karate Kid, right, in the 80s. Karate Kid and Karate Kid 2, actually. I like them both. Fight Club, right, that's a big one. Forrest Gump, that's a movie that a lot of people like. For me, I didn't think it was my favorite movie, but it's a good movie. Saving Private Ryan, Schindler's List, a lot of the Spielberg movies during that decade was good. Jurassic Park, right? Those were all 90s films. I think, yeah, the 90s was a really good decade for filmmaking. It might be one of my favorite decades for films. That was the last Groundhog Day. I watched that one a lot too.
Oh, yeah. Boomerang.
Yeah. So that was like the last decade that had movies I really wanted to rewatch. That made you think, right?
Yeah.
For like just general comedies I like to watch over and over, like Rush Hour 2, because you know that's classic. And then Scott Pilgrim versus the World is a really good movie.
That was 2010. 2010s.
But it was probably the best like comic book-ish movie I've seen.
Yeah, I know.
It was just done so well. It's Edgar Wright did that one. Yeah.
Every boyfriend had their own like distinct motif, just like a comic book.
And there was so many like actors and actresses that were in that movie. It was like a loaded movie before they ever became famous. Like this was Chris Evans pre Captain America.
Oh, that was Marvel.
They had Brie Larson. Had Brandon Routh. I think I got three superheroes there already, right? They had Audrey Plaza. It had Aubrey Plaza and Anna Kendrick, Michael Cera. Had all these dudes.
Culkin.
Yeah. Macaulay Culkin's brother. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of good actors on one. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, and then Inception, Interstellar. I like those ones, of course. Dark Knight, Spider-Man 2, probably my favorite superhero movie. Yeah. Like I said, Grandma's Boy. I think that's one of my favorite movies. I know it's not the most critically acclaimed film. It's not the most well-known film. A lot of people don't know it. But for me, it's definitely one of my favorite films. I've rewatched it like over and over. It's just such a funny film. And it's got like it's kind of a stoner movie. So it's got a lot of toilet humor, weed humor in it. But it's got a little bit classic humor in it as well. So it's not like just a pure toilet humor movie, right? So it's not like Hangover, for example. I'm not a big fan of The Hangover because I think that movie is just full of toilet humor. So it's not that good. But Grandma's Boy's got some classic humor in it. It's kind of like Harold and Kumar with the stoner stuff, but you got some elements of Anchorman in it, which is another really funny movie. I think Wayne's World is another good movie. So yeah, for comedies, I like to watch comedies, and Wayne's World is up there, and Office Space is up there. Anchorman's up there, and Grandma's Boy. These are all really funny movies. And then, some of the classic ones that Caddyshack, right? Animal House. Airplane is probably my all-time favorite, and Airplane 2 as well. So people forget there's a sequel to Airplane 2 as well. In which I think Airplane 2 is almost as funny as the original, even though most people haven't watched it. So I really recommend Airplane 2 as well. And then going back to some of the older classic films, I forgot to mention, of course, Gone with the Wind. That was actually the first movie I started out with when I started to do this marathon of classic movies, was Gone with the Wind, classic. And then there's Wizard of Oz. This is another classic. So those are actually late 30s movies. The 40s, right? The Big Sleep, Maltese Falcon, I mentioned those already. Casablanca. Citizen Kane, obviously. I feel like a lot of people these days haven't really watched Citizen Kane, though. I think even Casablanca is probably more well-known than Citizen Kane. But yeah, that's been the high watermark for movies for a very long time. I like The Killers as well. I think African Queen, right? Katharine Hepburn, so that's good. Then starting with 1950s, you got some classic movies as well. I like 50s movies a lot, actually. it brings me back to that era, right? So Streetcar Named Desire, right? Marlon Brando, On the Waterfront, Sunset Boulevard, right? A Place in the Sun with Elizabeth Taylor and Montgomery Clift. And then East of Eden and Rebel Without a Cause with James Dean. Then some of the Marilyn Monroe movies I watched, like Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, 7 Year Itch, Some Like It Hot. Oh yeah, so I like some Kurosawa films too. I know you like Seven Samurai and Yojimbo especially. But for me, I'm not too into the samurai stuff. I like Ikiru. I think Ikiru is my favorite film of his because it focuses on the family dynamic. It focuses on the growing pains of life. Basically, it's something that people can relate with a lot. So for me, I think Ikiru is definitely one of his best movies. So yeah, I'd put that one up there too. Those are good ones. Then the Hitchcock movies, Rear Window is one of my favorites. Probably my favorite Hitchcock movies actually is Rear Window. We watched it together, right? Then I have, Dial M for Murder, Vertigo, North by Northwest. Yeah, these are all pretty classic. Lawrence of Arabia, Godfather and Godfather 2. Those are all classic films. 2001 A Space Odyssey, obviously a very influential film, especially for science fiction. Yeah, then after 2001, you had more sci-fi movies that started evolving in the 70s, right? So you got THX 1138, Alien and Aliens, right? And then in the early 80s with Blade Runner. So you got more E.T., right, is another one. So you got like these sci-fi movies that started really coming to being, I think, during the late 70s and early 80s. And then Terminator 2 actually is one of my favorite action movies as well. That's early 90s, but yeah, that's gotta be on the list of all-time great action movies as well as Terminator 2. Still considered Arnold Schwarzenegger's best movie probably. And then, can't forget about Rocky and Rambo, right? That's Sylvester Stallone's movies. I think those two movies are probably what made them become really famous, those two franchises. Then along the same lines, you have a lot of action stars in the 80s, right? Like Stallone and Schwarzenegger, Jean-Claude Van Damme, right, with Cyborg. That's actually a sci-fi martial arts movie, which is kind of interesting. Then Ghostbusters 2, right? Those are classics. Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Harold Ramis. Bill Murray, the thing is, he always plays kind of the same character, I find, in most of his movies. He's kind of like this stoic comedic guy. Like Groundhog Day would be a typical example of the type of character he always plays, right? He's a stoic comedic guy, he makes a lot of jokes and tries to be funny and stuff, but he always has like, his facial expression is always like this I don't give a shit kind of expression, right? Like he doesn't want to be here, he doesn't want to be there. He's always like, he's got that expression and he's making these kind of jokes. It's a very deadpan sense of humor, which I think Bill Murray does a very good job of portraying that kind of character, right? The Hustler was a pretty good movie. It's from the early 60s. And then I think that one actually got remade a few times. All the Steve McQueen movies I like, and Bruce Lee movies as well. Obviously, those are all from the late 60s, early 70s. I actually like Chinese Connection a lot, and I know Enter the Dragon, that's an all-time classic. But yeah, Game of Death was really cool. Had a really cool concept. Obviously, he didn't finish it, but yeah. They actually released a pretty funny sequel, Game of Death 2. And I say funny because it doesn't actually have Bruce Lee in it. And they took an actor that looked like Bruce Lee and kind of like super... actually they took footage of Bruce Lee's actual funeral, put that in the movie, and then made some other actor play Bruce Lee in the movie, just pretended he was Bruce Lee. But the ending fight scene of that movie was actually really good. So not a lot of people know about Game of Death 2. For the Steve McQueen movies, I like Bullet, The Getaway, right? And of course, Magnificent Seven, right, which he was in earlier in his career. Yeah, so those are just some other classic movies I wanted to mention. Those are all good. Those have some of my favorite actors in as well. Oh yeah, John Wayne, right? The Searchers, and Who Shot Liberty Valance is one of my favorites as well. I love James Stewart. I think he's one of the classic American actors. Cary Grant, Spencer Tracy, Henry Fonda, Clark Gable. I mean, those are some pretty classic American actors, right? Mickey Rooney, right? Charlie Chaplin. I actually watched some Charlie Chaplin films. I think they were probably the oldest films I ever watched. Like, they're from the 1910s, right? So it was like the silent film era. I know you probably like you'll probably think I'm crazy, right? Because you don't watch like any classic. Well, you don't watch as many classic films as I do. But yeah, I go back all the way to Charlie Chaplin. So yeah, those are some classic American actors. And then for the actresses, classic actresses, Audrey Hepburn is one of my favorites. I actually think her. I think out of her movies, I like Sabrina a lot. It's a really underrated movie. Not a lot of people know about this movie, but I think Sabrina is one of the best. I recommend it. It has Humphrey Bogart and William Holden in it. And it was just when she was kind of starting her career. You know, when people think of Audrey Hepburn, they think of Roman Holiday. They think of Breakfast at Tiffany's, which is another one of my favorite movies. You know, that's a classic. But I think Sabrina is one of her best. And then I like Shirley Temple as well. I know I watched, it's really old school, but yeah, I watched some of her old films as well. This is like, you know, back in the 30s, black and white stuff, right? And then Elizabeth Taylor, right? She's a classic actress. Oh, Grace Kelly, right? I love Grace Kelly as well. She didn't do that many movies because, you know, she kind of stopped her career while she was in her prime, and then she got married and became a princess. But yeah, To Catch a Thief, or How to Catch a Thief, High Society. That one was pretty good. And of course, Rear Window, which we already watched together. That's a all-time great movie. Yeah, those are some good ones. And then going back to the 1930s, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. That's a classic film. That was a Frank Capra film with James Stewart, again, one of my favorite actors, like I mentioned. It's a Wonderful Life. That's another Frank Capra one with James Stewart in it. These are all pretty good movies. I mean, I know you don't like watching movies like that are this old, but if you ever have the inclination to, these are the ones I recommend. If you like gangster or noir films, White Heat is a good one. That's in addition to the other film noirs I mentioned already by Humphrey Bogart. Like I said, those are some classic ones. The Killers, In a Lonely Place, Maltese Falcon, The Big Sleep. I mean, these are obviously really iconic film noirs. Like the 1940s are basically the period of film noirs, right? So if you want to watch a classic film noir, there's tons from the 40s. Going back to the 30s, though, there's a star that many people don't know about, but was pretty popular back then, and that was Jean Harlow. So Jean Harlow died pretty young, so I guess that's why people don't really know her. And she kind of acted in the not silent era, black and white era, pre-code era films, which many people don't know about it now, but there was a period in the American film industry called the pre-code era. And the pre-code era was basically this Depression era of filmmaking, where basically the laws that were in place, you know, for depicting like sex and vulgar scenes of violence and interracial relationships and stuff, they weren't really abided by. So there was a lot of films that came out during that era that was very racy for the time, right? So we're talking about, you know, the 20s, late 20s, early 30s stuff. So it's pretty racy for the time, and that's an interesting area. That's an interesting period of films as well, right? So yeah, Jean Harlow, like I said, she kind of got her start in that era. Hell's Angels, she actually started with a backing by Howard Hughes, right? So Howard Hughes actually backed, I think, her first film, and then she later went on to do some really good ones like Red Dust. So yeah, those are some pretty good films. And who else back then? I think Greta Garbo, right? She was pretty famous. And Zaza Gabor, right? So Mia Farrow, right? All these classic actresses. Yeah, they were good. And a lot of the 60s westerns, which are actually inspired by the Akira Kurosawa films, right? So The Magnificent Seven, that was actually inspired by Seven Samurai, right? And the film that you liked, Yojimbo, I think that inspired Fistful of Dollars, right? So it inspired that whole trilogy, Good, Bad, and the Ugly, right? So yeah, I think many people don't know about that, that a lot of the 60s spaghetti westerns were actually inspired by the Kurosawa, like, samurai type of films. Even though the samurais and cowboys and, you know, those are all very different, but I guess the theme is kind of similar. You can see that the directorial style, right, is kind of similar as well, because I mean, we mentioned the last part of the podcast, right, that a lot of the films that we see today, Kill Bill, right, that's the one you mentioned by Tarantino as well, were actually inspired by Kurosawa. So he was a huge influence on the film industry. A lot of people don't know that. So yeah, just wanted to add a few more movies I like. Oh yes, so another movie that I talked about is another director I talked about is Wes Anderson, and I think one of my favorite films for just the visuals is Moonrise Kingdom. That movie has really good visuals, so I think just the use of color in that movie, it just brings you back to that innocent time, right? Because it's about that childhood innocence that in that movie. So it brings you back to that time. The color that he uses is really vibrant and bright. I guess you can say that Wes Anderson is kind of the opposite of Christopher Nolan in that sense, right? So yeah, Wes Anderson with Moonrise Kingdom, I like that a lot. Isle of Dogs as well. I think he also, the animation and the color of that movie is also really good. But Wes Anderson is mostly known for his use of color in films. So yeah. Like Leonardo DiCaprio, he's one of my favorite actors. So yeah, we talked about Inception. Wolf on Wall Street is actually one of my favorites as well. Really like that movie. Thought his acting was superb. Then Revenant is that's the movie that is critically acclaimed, but you probably wouldn't watch more than once. I would watch Inception and Wolf on Wall Street more than once. Probably not Revenant. Great Gatsby I thought was okay. Not his best outing. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, again, not his best outing. But I thought it was okay. Yeah, and then Titanic, obviously. But that's a movie that I think is... I would watch this a few times just because I watched it so much when I was young. So I kind of got tired of that movie. Fight Club, I think that was a really good movie. I think 1999 had a lot of good movies, man. Like the late 90s, they had a lot of movies that made you think. So 1999, there's American Beauty, Office Space, The Matrix, and Fight Club, right? So that was a really good year for movies. All those movies kind of made you think about things, right? So yeah, one of Brad Pitt's most famous movies, Fight Club, that's got to be up there. I watched that so many times. And then for comedies, yeah, Monty Python is actually pretty good as well. I know it's pretty old, but it still holds up, just like Airplane and Airplane 2. I think it still holds up today because the comedy in it is just so classic, right? So yeah, Monty Python, The Holy Grail has to be up there as well. Oh yeah, Happy Gilmore, remember that film? That was not bad. Mrs. Doubtfire, that was a classic. So those are pretty good comedy films. Oh yeah, I forgot Austin Powers. Yeah, I love Austin Powers. So that was a really, really funny comedy to me as well. I like a lot of the Mike Myers films. Yeah, Wayne's World, Austin Powers, Shrek. Yeah, a lot of the stuff he's done is pretty funny. So I'm a big fan of Mike Myers too. Oh yeah, so there's a few other good films that I forgot to mention. Daughter of Shanghai from the 1930s. This was actually I think one of the first films to actually star an Asian American, actually two Asian Americans in it. So Anna May Wong, she was actually the first big Asian star, right, in the U.S. She appeared in the film. So this is a pretty landmark film, and I think it's a pretty good film as well. So Daughter of Shanghai, I think that was from the 30s. And then Murder on the Orient Express, this has been remade several times, most recently in 2017. But yeah, that film as well is not bad. A typical murder mystery film. Italian Job, right? That film is actually pretty iconic, some of the scenes in that one. And then Miracle on 34th Street. This is a pretty classic film. I actually, this is one of the films you watch during Christmas along with It's a Wonderful Life. It's just one of those films that you always see on TV, right? So Miracle on 34th Street, Chris Kringle. Grew up with that film. The Hustler, right? Paul Newman. Right, that made pool, actually, billiards, pretty popular in the U.S. And then a few other David Lynch films, like Inland Empire. That's a pretty good film. Forgot to mention that one as well. Some Spielberg films as well. So Empire of the Sun. Not many people know about this Spielberg film, but yeah, this is obviously about Japan and World War II. It's a coming-of-age drama as well. So, and speaking of coming-of-age dramas, St. Elmo's Fire. Right, forgot about that one. So there was 16 Candles, Breakfast Club, Lucas, St. Elmo's Fire. These are all coming of age. The Goonies, right? These are all coming of age films from the 80s. I think that was kind of around that time. A few other ones. Some of the dramas, right? The Social Network from the 2010s, right? Lincoln, that's another Spielberg film. I think that was done pretty well. Barry Lyndon, that's actually a Kubrick film, right, from the 70s. So there's a nice period dramas. The Pianist was actually pretty good as well. That's from the 2000s. It's World War II era film. So I think the director was Roman Polanski on that one, actually. And oh yes, there's actually a Spielberg comedy that not many people know about. It's called 1941. So I think he did this around like 79 or 80, but I think it's one of his first, like, this is one of his first films that he directed. But yeah, I really like this one. It's kind of like a satire comedy film. It involves a panic in the LA area after the attack on Pearl Harbor. So I highly recommend it. Yeah, 1941. Not many people know about this film, but the story is by Robert Zemeckis, which is the classic comedy film director. Like I said, I love so many of his films: Kentucky Fried Movie, Amazon Woman on Mars, Airplane and Airplane 2, Naked Gun. Like he has such a good repertoire of comedy films. So definitely one of my favorite writers for comedy. It has Dan Aykroyd in it, John Belushi. So typical. I think that typical crowd, Ned Beatty. So yeah, that's a good film as well. And a few other movies that are not critically acclaimed, but that I personally like, right? Like Rush Hour 2, I think it's a really funny movie, but it's not critically acclaimed. American Pie 2, I watched that movie a few times. Anchorman, the first and second one, but the first one was better. Yeah, all the Austin Powers movies. I like Charlie's Angels, the 2000 version. So it's, not a good movie, but it's a fun movie. So I liked it. Another movie that I had to mention for Christmas movies is Home Alone. So, classic Christmas movie. It's along with like It's a Wonderful Life, Miracle on 34th Street, which are good movies. Jingle All the Way, which was not a good movie, but it's played a lot during Christmas. Die Hard, right? The whole trilogy. Which for some reason, I'm not sure why Die Hard's considered a Christmas film, but anyways, it is. And then yeah, Home Alone. So got to mention those classic Christmas films. Macaulay Culkin, right? That's the role that basically he's associated with ever since. Oh yeah, Slumdog Millionaire, right? That movie came out in like the mid 2000s. That was pretty good. Oh yeah, there's another film that I forgot to mention is Boogie Nights, right? Have you seen Boogie Nights? Yeah, Boogie Nights is a pretty good movie. This was like 90s and had a whole bunch of stars in it. It had like Mark Wahlberg, Julianne Moore, Burt Reynolds, I think Don Cheadle was in it, Heather Graham. So had a lot of big name stars in it, and yeah, that was a good movie too. And oh yeah, Clueless. That was another coming of age one from the mid 90s. That was pretty good. That was with Alicia Silverstone. Whatever happened to her? Anyways, she was pretty big, and then she kind of just like completely disappeared. But yeah, that was a good one. High Fidelity. That was a good one as well from the 2000s, I think. Yeah. Heathers is another one that's kind of interesting. It has Winona Ryder. That's actually one of her first movies, I think. Yeah, it's kind of like a coming of age teen comedy type of film. It actually was inspired by Stanley Kubrick, Dr. Strangelove. So, and then it became like a cult kind of film. So yeah, that one's pretty interesting as well. All right, so a few other films I forgot to talk about. In the 50s, another one of the Hitchcock films is Psycho. Right, that's actually a really good film as well, along with his other ones. And then in the 60s, another good sci-fi movie is Planet of the Apes. Right, that's a good one. And then talking about horror films, I didn't really talk too much about horror films, but in the 70s, there's a lot of pioneering horror films like Exorcist, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Dawn of the Dead. Right, those are all classic horror films to kind of pave the way for the genre. And then also in the 70s, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, right? Good Spielberg film, kind of along with Alien, kind of kickstarted the sci-fi genre. So, or the modern sci-fi genre, I should say. There was sci-fi before in the 50s and 60s, of course, but the modern sci-fi genre kind of came into being with Alien and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So, yeah, those ones as well. Oh yeah, Her is a pretty good film too. It's a sci-fi film, and it's also like a romantic comedy film, which is kind of interesting because you don't see that very often, right? But yeah, Joaquin Phoenix, he's always been good, and Scarlett Johansson, she's been in a lot of these sci-fi movies too. Ghost in the Shell, right? Lucy, and but this one's definitely the best out of those. So yeah. And a few other animated movies, or half-animated movies, I should say, towards the end of the 2010s I really liked. Spider-Man Enter the Spider-Verse, I really liked that. I think the art style of that movie was really nice, and it was able to have that multiverse story without seeming convoluted, right? So and it enters Sony into kind of this new era, right? So I really like that movie. So that's one of my favorite Spider-Man movies. And then Ready Player One, which is a Spielberg produced film, right? That one is actually pretty good. I like it. First of all, it has to do with video games. I don't like all movies that have to do with video games because most of them suck. Sometimes in a really funny way, like the so bad it's good way, like the Street Fighter movie, the Mortal Kombat movie, Dead or Alive. Those movies really suck, but they suck in a way that makes them campy. So there's those kind of movies, and then there's video game movies that just actually suck, like Super Mario Brothers. But yeah, Ready Player One was actually a good movie, and it was related to video games and stuff. And then Wreck-It Ralph as well is another good movie that's related to video games. And Scott Pilgrim versus the World, right? Like I said, great movie that has more to do with comic books and has some video game stuff in it. Also, like Alita Battle Angel, like that movie also is kind of like a half animated movie because the character's CGI, but she's in a live action film. And that movie is actually good. I liked it because it managed to show the female protagonist, in a strong way without making her seem like a Mary Sue. Like the way that I don't like the way that the industry is going with all these Mary Sue type characters, like Rey, from Star Wars, and Captain Marvel, and the reboots of all the Ocean's 11, Ghostbusters, Charlie's Angels, like all this new crap that they have to put in, like with an all-female cast or stuff. It's not natural, right? Even the new Mulan too, right? The new Mulan movie that's coming out, like they're kind of forcing in the fact that the female protagonist is just powerful for the sake of being powerful, and I don't like that. I like it when it's more natural. So Alita Battle Angel, I think, does this in a good way. James Cameron as producer as well. So I think this is a really good movie. I really hope it gets a sequel because it ended on a cliffhanger. So yeah, that would be another one. Like, Hollywood needs to realize that they can make a good movie with a strong female protagonist without having to, to force it in, right? So, like, some examples would be like Charlie's Angels, the 2000 version, right? I feel like that wasn't forced in. They were pretty strong protagonists, but it wasn't forced in, like the new Charlie's Angels. Or Wonder Woman, right? Wonder Woman, feel like it wasn't as forced in as Captain Marvel was. So yeah, or an Alita Battle Angel, like I said. So yeah, these examples, I think, examples of movies that the female protagonist can be strong-willed, independent character without seeming like she was forced into the movie like that, right? Without seeming like it was because of some, feminist agenda, right? That Hollywood was pushing. So that's what I feel, right? They should be, if they want to get this message across, then they should do it in a more natural way. And they've done this before, right? So I don't get it. Like, why did they have to make all these movies to kind of force it in and bash our heads in with the fact that, oh, guess what? Females can do everything men can do, right? Like, instead of like bashing in that message, let's just, I think there's better ways of portraying that. Like, and they've done that before. So, yeah. Another character would be, Sigourney Weaver, her character in Alien, right? And Aliens. So, yeah, those are good movies, and we had strong female protagonists in those movies too. So, I mean, a lot of the original Mulan, right? Another movie that had a strong female protagonist without seeming like it's forced. Like the new Mulan seems like it's just forced, right? They just made the female character super powerful, but the original Mulan wasn't like that, right? So, yeah. There's a few other comments I want to add as well, but yeah. The Royal Tenenbaums, that's a pretty good film. Wes Anderson film, right? Yeah, I guess Sixth Sense, that's a pretty good film, and I think that's M. Night Shyamalan's best film, actually. It's the one that got him famous, and it's also his best one, so I think the films he made after that was, not as good. But yeah, I gotta put that one up there as well. And, another good film from the 80s is Do the Right Thing. That's a Spike Lee directed film, but that one's very good as well. Oh yeah, another indie movie I really liked that came out in the 2000s was Shanghai Kiss. So Shanghai Kiss, I really like the story because I could relate to it a lot. It's about an Asian American guy who, he's in LA, he grew up in LA, raised in LA, but he was born in China. He doesn't know where his identity is. Is it in China or is it in the US? Is he American or is Chinese? He's struggling with that. He got girlfriends on both sides of the ocean, so he's got to deal with that. So it's a romantic drama film, but personally, not a lot of people know it, right? Because it's an indie film. But personally, it's one of my favorites. So I got to put Shanghai Kiss up there as well. I recommend people check it out. It's actually really good movie for me, right? Maybe just because I can relate to it a lot. But I like Shanghai Kiss. Because a lot of the things is like a lot of the sequels and stuff. Now we're in an era of just like sequels and remakes. A lot of them aren't that good. They don't live up to the originals, I find. Even Charlie's Angels, right? So Charlie's Angels, I'm not saying it's the best movie, but it's fun watching it. But like now they have a reboot. Yeah, no, it's good. Ghostbusters, right? The original was a classic. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, they should have kept Ivan Reitman on. Wait.
And
I think he passed away. Anyway, but.
And Spaceballs, dude. Remember that?
Oh, that's a parody.
Yeah, that was one of the best parody movies.
Well, for me,
Yep.
all right. Let me give you a list of movies that are not critically acclaimed, but I watch all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, Best of the Best Part 1.
Okay.
Have you seen that movie?
No.
Okay, so I think it's a late 80s or early 90s martial art movie starring Philip Ree. So he stars in it and he produced it. You know, he's like the Tommy Wiseau of martial arts.
Yeah.
Actually, Bruce Lee's the Tommy Wiseau of martial arts because he produced and wrote and
But he was better than
Yeah.
Tommy, so yeah.
Well, anyways, Best of the Best. I can have that on repeat over and over. You know, it had pretty good actors in there. They had Christopher Penn, Philip Ree. It had Julia Roberts' brother, Eric Roberts, and some Korean dudes. So have you seen that movie?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so
what year is it?
I think it's like from like 88 to 91, somewhere in that range. So basically, in the world, this is before the UFC, right?
Yeah.
So there's like karate championships or taekwondo championships, right? So the world champions are the Korean team, and they're like fucking badass. They're like train outside with like 100 practitioners outside, and like breaking boards. And there's this guy, right? He has like he has like spiky hair, and he only has like one eye, right?
Yeah.
And has like a goatee. He looks mean as fuck, right?
Yeah.
His name is Dae Han, right? So there's a backstory. He killed like this other dude in a competition. So he killed someone in a competition. So that dude that he killed, his little brother is actually growing up in Fresno, California, right? So he's like Korean American, right? He makes it onto the American team, martial arts team, and they gotta face each other. The reason why I like that movie, right, is because, you know, it's kind of like Rocky. They're training, they have other aspects in their life that are in the movie, but they're actually training because at the end of the movie they're gonna fight, right? But I like it because the American team lost. You know what I'm saying?
That's not common. Yeah.
No, they lost, but they earned the respect of the Koreans.
Yeah.
Right. So you just gotta watch it. It has a really good message, you know, and it's not no fairy tale stuff. Like, you know, like you don't always win. You know what I'm saying? You're not gonna avenge your dead brother. You're gonna actually fucking lose.
Right.
But you get the respect from the guy who killed your brother, and the guy who killed your brother, he's apologizing to you and he's crying, right? He feels really bad, you know, so there's some type of closure there. So Best of the Best is one of them. Escape from New York. You seen that movie? Kurt Russell?
No, I haven't.
So it's not critically acclaimed, it's just entertaining. Another one is Big Trouble Little
Big Trouble Little China.
Yeah. That's Russell Crowe. Kurt Russell.
Yep. It's a cool movie.
What other? The Room. I can't believe you didn't say The Room, man.
Yes.
It's not critically acclaimed, but
it's a movie you can watch over and over again.
Yes, you know. Yes. So it's like it's accidental masterpiece. I can say that.
It's lightning in a bottle. Yeah.
Damn. There's so many movies in my head. I just can't think about them right now.
Let me list some more. Wolf of Wall Street.
Okay,
I like that movie.
Yeah.
Lost in Translation. I like that movie.
Yeah, I've seen Lost in Translation at least 100 times. At least 100 times.
Old Boy. That's a good movie.
Old Boy?
Yeah.
The original, right?
Yes, the original Korean one.
Right. Yeah.
That's a classic film.
Okay.
A lot of the you know who wrote Airplane was they call him the ZZZ. Because the writer's like Zuckerberg or whatever. Yeah. Anyways, they wrote a lot of great comedies. Naked Gun, right?
Yeah, I know those.
And they wrote Kentucky Fried Movie. A lot of people don't know this movie.
I don't know that one.
It's a parody of Enter the Dragon, but it's a really good parody.
Okay.
Just like how Airplane was a good parody.
Yeah.
Amazon Woman on Mars.
Okay.
See, a lot of people don't know these films, but they're good comedies. So Woody Allen actually made another good one night, like What's Up, Tiger Lily?
Okay.
He took a Japanese spy thriller from the 1966, and then he overdubbed it with American. He overdubbed it with dialogue that's not part of the film, like, you know.
Okay.
Like it was a standard like spy thriller, but he did something like the other movies didn't do at the time, which is I think they still don't do this, but he took out like all the he assumes you don't know Japanese, so he dubs it with lines that are comedic, right?
Yeah.
So
okay,
that's just a fun movie to watch. You should watch it sometime. Yeah. It was his first directorial movie, by the way. Yeah. So.
All right. So here are the movies that I do like. Some of them are critically acclaimed. I'll start with the most recent movies.
Okay.
The last movie I saw. Okay. Some of these movies people don't like, but I like The Village by M. Night Shyamalan. Because the ending is just so drastically different than what I thought it was going to be. Interstellar was pretty good. Inception is good. Memento is good. Mother, I already talked about that.
There's a Korean movie also called Mother, by the way, which is also critically acclaimed.
Is it about the Bible?
No.
Okay, so yeah,
but
I gotta check that out though. Because Koreans don't really rely on CGI, so they're really dialogue heavy. So,
you should check the Korean movie out too. It's also good. Yeah.
So a lot of people do like Parasite, but I prefer Snowpiercer.
Yes, you do.
Snowpiercer is just.
I think that's an underrated movie.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think it's underrated. People got to go back and watch Snowpiercer. It's think about it. It was way harder to make Snowpiercer than Parasite. Dude, he's working with a cast for a movie that's in English.
It's basically
but the director's Korean. He speaks Korean.
It's basically Parasite, but in like a train that's like circling the world
at a higher scale.
Yeah.
Yeah. So which they have a Netflix show or something like that coming out.
Did you watch The Handmaiden? That's also a good movie.
No, I heard about that.
Okay, that's another one I recommend too.
What other movies? So what year so the 2010s. Critically acclaimed 2010. I like Benjamin Button. That's a good movie. Kind of weird, but I like that movie. I like.
Did you like Blade Runner 2049?
I like Blade Runner 2049, but I don't think it did. I don't think it kind of like pushed the boundaries of special effects the way that the original Blade Runner did. But I like it. Roger Deakins was the DP, and he's basically the best. So yeah, but I feel like we should have got a different person's point of view.
Yeah.
And but it was a good movie.
You like Dunkirk?
Dunkirk was a good movie, and the background sound or music just kept like going forever, and just I kind of felt like I was hypnotized, and I was like transcending into this world, like I was like in the movie, because his use of sound,
Yeah.
And what else is good? Okay, so the 2000s. Man, why is my mind blank right now?
So you said Black Swan already, right?
Yeah, Black Swan.
Yeah.
Requiem for a Dream.
Yep.
What else? The Wrestler. You get to see the nuances of different, different like walks of life. That I probably would have never known about. Okay, so 90s, my favorite era. Quentin Tarantino. I like him. I already said he was one of my favorites, but I don't like all his films.
Yeah.
I like Reservoir Dogs. I like Pulp Fiction. I like
I think Kill Bill was 2000s. Yeah.
Yeah, it was 2001
or something. Or 2003, yeah.
Or 2, yeah. The Kill Bills were good. But I really like Inglourious Bastards.
Oh, okay.
So if you watch the opening scene of Inglourious Bastards, I feel like Alfred Hitchcock was just like telling him how to start that scene. You remember that scene,
Hitchcock,
right?
Yeah.
So, Alfred Hitchcock, he times the pace of feeding the information to the viewer, right? And that's what Quentin Tarantino did in the beginning of Inglourious Basterds. See, we never actually knew those Jewish people were under their feet. We didn't know.
Yeah.
Because Quentin Tarantino didn't tell us that only until like the middle of the conversation when that guy was telling him, I'm actually hunting for Jews, right? So that's totally Hitchcock shit. So, yeah, Inglourious Basterds. Django was okay.
Speaking of the Jewish stuff, Schindler's List.
Oh yeah, that was 94. Yeah. Oh yeah, Schindler's List is good. Forrest Gump is actually really good. Castaway. Oh my god.
Yeah, Tom Hanks.
Yeah, for like
he's a good actor.
80% of the movie is just like one dude. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just go back to the 80s. Back to the Future. The whole trilogy was good.
Really, even part 3?
I think. Well, yeah, think about it.
I was very mad about part 3.
Well, okay, so if they
part 1 and 2 were good.
If they didn't go back to the Wild West, where could they gone? Right? They couldn't stay in the present, right? They couldn't go to the 50s. They couldn't go like past like, was it 2018?
Yeah, something like that.
So
yeah.
They had to go like somewhere else, right? So the only logical step was to go to the Wild West.
And they could have gone other countries, I felt.
Well, it's a time machine. They're traveling time. They're not traveling distance.
Well, yeah, I guess. Well, for America, yeah, I gotta know.
Anyways,
yeah.
But that was my least favorite, the third one.
Yeah.
I like the second one though.
The second one's good.
Yeah. The John Hughes movies were good. Breakfast Club.
Yep.
Okay, 70s. Oh, 70s. Rocky. The first Rocky. That was a good movie. It's not a boxing film. It's a look into a man's life who just happens to be a boxer.
Yeah. There's a moral in that film.
So that's pretty good. And he doesn't win. Just like Best of the Best. He doesn't win. Right? So I like those movies. Realistic. Just because we're riding with you for the whole movie doesn't mean you're going to win. If people watch movies like Rocky, they would learn more about life. What do you know about life?
What do you know about life? Do you know about life?
Yeah. Okay, so
actually reminds me, I told you about that 2005 film Grandma's Boy. That was, I watched that film so many times.
Yeah.
But it's a funny film because it's like Harold and Kumar except with a video game tester as the main character.
Yeah.
But that reminds me of the 70s film Animal House. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which, I like
John Belushi.
John Belushi.
Yeah. Belushi. Yeah. 70s. Okay, it's Full Metal Jacket. Apocalypse Now.
Mm-hmm. Apocalypse Now. The Alien.
Yeah, the Ridley Scott Alien.
The original one. The OG.
Yep. Alien was good. Ridley Scott. He's good. What else? Of course, Star Wars. Oh yeah, I like the prequels. So in the 2000s, yeah, all three of them were good. I like the third one.
The third one's good.
I liked it.
The third one was good.
I like
Revenge of the Sith was good. Yeah.
Okay, back to the 70s. Taxi Driver.
Did you like American Graffiti or THX?
I like THX more than American Graffiti. I like American Graffiti because it shows that George Lucas could show real reality. Like he isn't always thinking about like a different civilization somewhere else. So it's American Graffiti actually is about his interest. A lot of people don't know that he crushed his rib cage street racing.
Right.
Yeah, which coincidentally,
that's why a lot of his movies are about street racing.
Oh yeah, he implements racing. Yeah, but since he had that injury, it affected him when he directed Star Wars. So he got a lot of chest pains and was getting like heart attacks because he has previous injuries to his chest area.
Godfather.
Godfather. Oh, yeah. Honestly, tell
1
the
and
truth,
2.
I don't like them.
You don't like them?
1, they're too long. 2 is just like, I know they're good movies. They're just, I don't know. Every time I watch them, I fell asleep. I'm just gonna tell the truth
because it's a long movie. Yeah,
no,
I know, I got it.
But you know,
Do you like Al Pacino? Like seen Scarface, Goodfellas?
I saw Scarface. Yeah, Scarface is good. I like Scarface better than Goodfellas, but Goodfellas is good because there's a scene where Ray Liotta, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see that Chantix commercial?
Oh no.
Oh, he's sponsored by this anti-smoking thing. Anyways,
Okay.
So he's basically what they did. He's in this diner and everything's unraveling.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's starting to realize like people are out to get him or fuck him up, right? But it's called a Zolly, right?
Yeah.
So it's either you're zooming out, or no, you're getting pulled out but you're zooming in, or you're pushing the camera in and you're zooming out. Well, basically what it does is it keeps the subject, it keeps their size constant, but everything around them, behind them, like the background, it either gets bigger or smaller. But in that scene, it seemed like the world was closing in on it. So they were telling a story in that scene in the diner through dialogue, but also they're telling the story through cinematography. And that's something Akira Kurosawa would have did.
Right.
So I really like that scene a lot. So that was a good movie.
Back to the 50s and 60s.
So The Graduate was one of the first movies that ever got me horny. Right? So
Mrs. Robinson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So The
Are
Graduate.
you trying to seduce me?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The Good, Bad,
Clint
Ugly,
Eastwood.
Yeah.
Also, Fistful of Dollars. It's a whole trilogy. Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, hold on, dude. I told you before. I there's a lot of movies, but I just can't think about them right now.
Yeah, it's, I mean, maybe I can jog your memory. There's some John Wayne movies. Who Shot Liberty Valance is a really good one.
No,
Talked
you know about
before.
John Wayne more than me.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you know way more about John Wayne.
The Searchers. Yeah,
Yeah.
those are... Oh, you don't really watch John Wayne, huh?
Well, I usually, the movies I watch are usually from the 60s to the 90s.
Oh, okay.
So those 3 decades are like my favorite.
Okay.
Well, actually 70s to the 90s, but yeah. So, but yeah, movies. Yeah.
I can look some up just to see if you can... Don't worry, by the way, I can always edit this stuff.
Kindergarten Cop. Kindergarten Cop. That was a good one.
Let's see, what were the popular... Lawrence of Arabia in the 60s. Let's see. Winter.
Oh yeah, so I forgot to talk about my international films that I like.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
So, In the Mood for Love.
Oh, that's a good one. Yep.
That was the DP for that was Christopher Doyle. Wong Kar-wai directed it. It's a very subtle movie, but the movie is actually told with color. So if you watch that movie like 4 or 5 times, the colors of the scene are actually telling you a little bit more than just the dialogue itself. And if you look carefully at that movie, because you know how you're actually looking at other people's lives, and it's kind of like we're eavesdropping. There's a lot of In the Mood for Love.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the movie we're actually seeing it. We're looking inside a window.
Yeah.
So a lot of the scene, we actually see the windowsill, and we see them.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why we did that is it's like yeah. So we're like, it's hard to explain, but I found that really fascinating. Hero. Yeah. So the use of color in Hero.
Chet Li, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was Christopher Doyle.
Yeah.
The same guy who did the cinematography for Chungking Express and also In the Mood for Love. I don't know. I like it when people use, when people perform visual storytelling on top of dialogue. That's when you're using like the full force of cinematography, or of cinema. Yeah. So right off the top, I can't really.
Okay, I'll go with some movies from '60s. Bullet, a lot of the Steve McQueen movies.
Yeah, that's a good one.
The Hustler, How the West Was Won, Mary Poppins,
Ooh, Mary Poppins.
Sound of Music.
Never watched Sound of Music.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we have to watch that. You know more about the classic stuff, right?
Dr. Zhivago, that's a classic one. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? Let's see. Yeah, those are all pretty classic ones. Let's see. Okay, let's try. You're more about post 60s or 70s, right?
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. 70s. I'm just curious. All right, let's look at the 70s.
Let's do the 80s.
Clockwork and Godfather. Yeah, let's Exorcist. Yeah, I don't know that one.
Exorcist, yeah.
Classic. Godfather Part 2. Let's see. Jaws, Barry Lyndon, Rocky, All the President's Men, Taxi Driver, Annie Hall. Murder on the Orient Express.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, let's do 80s. Let's see. Let's get from the 80s. All right. Raiders of the Lost Chariots of Fire. E.T. Let's see. Amadeus. I actually watched that movie.
Yeah.
Color Purple, Platoon, Room with a View, Moonstruck. A lot of James Bond films. I think Goldfinger was probably my favorite out of those ones.
Yeah.
Sean Connery. Yeah, I don't think The Untouchables.
Untouchables was a good movie with Kevin Costner.
Color and Money.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so let's look at 90s actually. Let's see. All right, Dances with Wolves, Silence of
That was a good one.
Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, that was pretty good.
JFK, Oliver Stone.
Yeah, Oliver Stone.
Watch that one. Unforgiven. The Fugitive, Schindler's List.
We were just talking about The Fugitive.
Yeah. Yeah, Shawshank Redemption.
Oh man, that was a good one. Green Mile was also a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shawshank Redemption, Green Mile.
Oh, Gattaca.
Oh yeah, who's that actor in that? Jude Law's in that, right?
Jude Law.
Yeah.
Braveheart.
That was a good one.
Apollo 13. Have you watched?
Oh, was that with Kevin Bacon?
I think so.
Or Tommy Lee Jones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, that was a good one. They had like the stutter effect.
Jerry Maguire.
Show me the money.
Yeah, Fargo. Good Will Hunting. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one.
And two, Shakespeare in Love.
I never saw that one.
You
Who directed it?
I forget, but this is one with Leo DiCaprio, right?
Shakespeare in Love. I think you're talking about Romeo and Juliet.
Oh yeah, I got
that's
confused.
DiCaprio and
Yeah.
Sardanes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, American Beauty. I like that one.
Oh, there you go. American Beauty's good.
Sixth Sense.
Oh yeah, that. You know what? That movie really like put Shyamalan on the map.
Yes, I think that was maybe his best one.
Well, he's known for the endings. You know what I'm saying? Like Bruce Willis was the ghost the whole time.
Yeah.
Right. That's why I like The Village, and I also especially like The Village because it was shot by Roger Deakins. So that's kind of cool. Yeah.
I like The Fifth Element, even though it's a polarizer movie.
Like The Fifth Element. That's with the girl with the
Bruce
orange hair.
Bruce Willis. Armageddon.
Is it Jajanovich or what's her name?
Oh, Gladiator with Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe.
Oh, A Beautiful Mind also.
Oh, with Russell Crowe. Yeah.
Russell Crowe, yeah.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Yeah. 300, right?
300 was good.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
That's pretty good. I like that. After Crouching Tiger came out, everyone who had fighting scene wanted to hire the same.
We won't say that. Just Spirited Away. So a lot of these Japanese anime ones, Ghost in the Shell, Akira,
Ninja Scroll,
Princess Mononoke. A lot of Studio Ghibli films. Grave of the Fireflies, right? That's a pretty emotional one. My Neighbor Totoro, that's a classic one. And then you got, Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away. Those ones are all pretty classic. I think those are good. They started having animated films starting from the 90s, because that's when it kind of became popular.
Yeah.
By the way, what's your favorite Disney film?
Favorite Disney film?
Like animation.
Animation?
Disney or Pixar. Yeah.
Either have to be Toy Story 3 or Up.
Up is really good. Yeah.
Yeah, but Up, they already have they know what's popular. Well, Toy Story 3, I don't know. It's pretty emotional,
Yeah, Toy Story 3 is one of the most... I remember almost crying in that movie. I don't do that
I did cry with Toy Story 3. That was probably the first time I cried from an animated film.
I almost cried for Up too. That was also...
Up was, the montage after they got married and
that was really
that was
well.
really touching, And the thing I like about Up is the use of music and animation together. It just meshed really good, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Actually, Pixar always does good meshing with music,
Yep.
You Got a Friend in Me with
Yeah,
Toy Story.
the Toy Story.
That's such good pairing, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, so Toy Story 3 and Up for me are good. What about you?
For me, so I got divided. So there's 2D animated films, 3D animated films, right? For 2D films, I'm kind of unconventional. So a lot of people think of Disney, they think of the Renaissance. So they think of Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, Hercules, Hunchback, Mulan, Tarzan, right? But for me, it's actually the one right before Little Mermaid, one right after Tarzan, which is Oliver and Company, which I think is a really underrated film. That came out 88, right before Little Mermaid. And the one that came after Tarzan, which is Emperor's New Groove.
Oh, yeah.
I really like that movie. I think it's also underrated. It's honestly one of the funniest animated films I've ever watched.
Yeah.
It still holds up. So that's for 2D animation. I think I like some kind of unconventional Disney films. And then for the 3D ones, Up and Toy Story 3 are good. Finding Nemo. I actually for me, personally, I like Big Hero 6.
Okay.
Do you know that movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so it's just a fun film, and it has superhero elements to it. I also like the first Wreck-It Ralph, just because it's a pretty good video game related movie. So I think for 3D films, Shrek, obviously that was big. Yeah. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. It was actually a good movie too.
Funny.
Yeah.
That's a funny one,
A few other ones, Howl's Moving Castle, Brokeback Mountain, Munich, Little Miss Sunshine, The Departed.
Departed's good.
Let's see.
It's with Mark Wahlberg, right?
Yeah, Ratatouille. Okay, I know that film. It's also Pixar. Yeah, Benjamin Button, Slumdog Millionaire, WALL-E, Kung Fu Panda. Let's see the other ones. Oh yeah, Inglourious Basterds. You said that. Fantastic Mr. Fox. Princess and the Frog. I like that movie. Yeah, and then let's finish with the 2010s quickly. Black Swan, Social Network. That's a good movie, I think. And Toy Story 3, Inception. I didn't like Frozen as much as other people did. I felt like it was a derivative kind of film. A lot of people liked it, but I like Frozen 2 even less, by the way. I thought
it was totally anti-classic.
I don't think it was deserving of the popularity it received. I think I like Inside Out. I think that one was good. But yeah, Frozen. Life of Pi. I really like Life of Pi.
Yeah.
For the visuals, was really good in that movie. You like Her?
Oh yeah, that's with what's his name again? Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah. And Cloud Atlas.
That was a German movie.
It was a lot of people didn't like it. It was kind of experimental, but I thought it was underrated.
No, I think it was good. It's just it's a hard story to adapt from the book. Also, I think it's one of the first major German produced movies to launch in America. You know, it's kind of weird.
Oh, The Revenant, The Martian.
Yeah. Revenant had a lot of really good cinema techniques. You know,
Gravity, and I haven't really watched that one actually.
It made me have a headache.
Moana, no, that's good.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Get Out, have you seen that one?
Yes, that's actually Get Out. Actually, kind of made me feel like Darren Aronofsky makes me feel, but not as much as Darren Aronofsky. You know, you feel helpless. You know.
Isle of Dogs. This is a Wes Anderson film. Not a lot of people watched it.
Yeah.
Oh, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. That's actually a good one.
That's actually, yeah, that's pretty good. I know it's a plot device though. They only put that out because, you know.
But the animation style in that one's like very unique.
Yeah.
Yeah, that they use in that movie.
I like that, yeah. Well, you know, in the future of Spider-Man, they're gonna have different. You know, I heard somewhere along the lines of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are gonna make an appearance, and the only way that can happen is if there's a multiverse. And the only way that we can digest the multiverse is if they give us the information that the Spideyverse exists. And without Madam Web, we need the storyline for, you know, the Spideyverse.
Yeah.
So it was you know, it's put there for a reason because you know.
It expands their writing.
Yeah.
For musicals, I actually watched La La Land and Bohemian Rhapsody in Korea.
Yeah, those are good.
Oh yeah, so some other musicals that I forgot to mention is A Star Is Born. And A Star Is Born, this film was actually remade several times. The original is from 1937, remade in 1954. This is probably the version most people know with Judy Garland. So that one, Singing in the Rain, right? That's actually one of the most critically acclaimed musicals. Then of course The Sound of Music, also a very famous musical, right? West Side Story, right? Also pretty famous. And Grease. Yeah, Grease is actually pretty famous as well. So there's a bunch of musicals there that I have to mention. 1917.
That was good.
Once Upon...
1917, to tell you the truth, cinematically is a masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was boring. But I know it's very technical and it's hard to make, you know.
Did you like...
Well, you know, there's other movies that did some of the same techniques, you know, the long scenes with no cuts. But they actually did cut it really well, like Birdman and Children of Men. So those movies have scenes that look like they were shot all in one take. But yeah,
that was unique. What one more thing is, so what do you think about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think that I think it's Quentin Tarantino's like third worst movie.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And I say that because like the promotion for it, you know, I should have never saw any trailer or like read any like, you know, anything about it. I should have just like watched it, you know, and have like no like. It was kind of like Parasite. Everyone told me it was gonna be so good and it won all these awards. So when I watched Parasite, I was already expecting to be blown away.
The expectation was too high.
Yeah, so the expectation was so high that even to me, Parasite was okay, right? And it's the same thing with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Like, oh, it's, you know, it's his ninth movie, the second to the last movie. So I'm thinking like, okay, it's second to last. He might, you know, he got better over time, and it's gonna be the fucking shit, right?
Yeah.
And I saw it. I was like, man, this shit's fucking long. It's like kind of reminds me of Hateful Eight. It's like it's kind of too long, you know. And so I don't know. It might have made a good book
Yeah.
or something like that. But I don't know. It was just, I don't know. But yeah.
Oh yeah, Mulholland Drive. You like them too, right?
Oh, see, that's what I'm talking about, man. Like, there's so many good movies that and I've been talking about David Lynch before, and
yeah.
You know, Mulholland Drive, the weird thing about that is, did you know it wasn't even supposed to be a movie?
Oh, I didn't know that.
It was a pilot for a TV show, and they rejected it. So they said, fuck, it's not going to be a show, we got to turn it into one movie. And so that's why it's kind of weird, right? It's because the project was supposed to be the beginning of a television series, and then he had to end it. So, so. But I've watched that movie so many times, I came to the conclusion that half of the movie is a dream.
That's kind of like Inception in that sense.
Yeah.
I like movies that can have like many different interpretations.
Well, yeah, a lot of people like wonder what the movie was, you know?
Yeah.
But David Lynch, see, in order for me to find out, I actually watched the interviews of David Lynch about the movie.
Yeah.
So he tells you, but he doesn't tell you directly, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's actually a dream.
Oh.
Do you remember that movie?
It's been a while since I watched it.
Yeah. Well, next time you watch that movie, after she gets off of the airplane into the airport, you have entered the dream world.
Okay, see, I like those kind of movies that make you think.
Yeah.
Right. So also, The Matrix and Inception are like this. They make you think. What is, is it real or not? Right.
Yeah.
Those kind of movies are.
Well, the top never fell down. The totem.
Yeah.
Or did it? Or did they just cut in time before it didn't fall down?
Exactly. So. One more thing is for Korean movies, I have a bunch of movies actually I think it's better than Parasite. So Handmaiden I think is better. I guess people just focus on the lesbian sex scenes, but it's way more than that. It's actually a really layered story. Old Boy I mentioned already. A lot of Park Chan-wook's films are pretty good, I find. Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. Mother, as I mentioned. I think Sunny, I think, is a good Korean film as well. I'm talking about the 2011 one. There's also another Sunny, the 2008 one with Sue. That one's also okay, but I'm talking about the 2011 one, which I think is pretty good. Pieta is another good one.
Okay.
Recommend. So, yeah, I think Koreans actually make a lot of good thrillers, I think.
Yeah.
So there's The Host, which was Bong Joon-ho's film, right? He made that one too. So, yeah, I don't know. I think those ones are all good too. Deep Trap, another one. Yeah.
Well, I gotta say something about Japanese films. Every time they make a horror film, it's low budget, and it's kind of laughable, but it's scary as fuck. And then the Americans try to redo it with bigger budget, and then you get The Grudge. So,
The Grudge. Yeah, they always try to, they did My Sassy Girl, they did Old Boy remake, and none of it was good.
Sometimes, you don't want special effects, and you don't want perfect lighting, right? And you don't want a lot of marketing, right? Yeah. It has to be rough, and it has to, I don't know, but yeah, it was a good discussion about movies.
Cool. So that was discussion for today, and that was good for tonight, and we'll have another podcast next time.
All right.
So that's it.
Peace.
All right. So I know that this podcast, I didn't do a very good job of preparing for it. So when I met Patrick, I should have had a list of my all-time favorite movies, but I didn't, and that's why this podcast seemed like it was kind of rambling on and on about all these different movies here and there. So I made a blog post about my all-time favorite movies, so I'm just going to go through these so you guys get a definitive sense of each decade, which movies I thought were the best from each decade, okay? So here I listed my top 12 movies all time from each decade, except for the 1930s and 1940s. I actually started from 1930s because this is the decade when we could sort of see movies as the modern film, right? The modern cinema and the modern era kind of started in the 30s. Because you did have movies, in the 1910s, 1920s. You had Birth of a Nation, right? D.W. Griffith, and you had the Charlie Chaplin films. But I mean, that's like the silent era, and that era is like very, very different from like the movies back then were so different from now, right? So I would consider like the late 30s, kind of the mid to late 30s, the Depression era is when we first started seeing movies that are kind of like the modern era. So that's why I started with the 30s. And I only had 5 from the 30s and 40s because obviously I watch more films than that. But I only picked 5 because honestly, it's kind of hard to find films from back then. These days you can torrent and you can like maybe watch some on Netflix and stuff, but it's not that easy to find movies from the 30s and 40s compared to like the 50s and later, right? So that's why I only have 5 from those decades, okay? So starting from the 30s, I have Gone with the Wind, which is the first kind of movie that I started with on my classic American cinema run, right? My marathon. Gone with the Wind, classic movie, right? I think that's from 1939. And then Wizard of Oz, I think also this is from 1937, I think. Wizard of Oz, a classic movie, right? Most people have watched it. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, this classic Frank Capra, James Stewart combination, which I really like. That's one of my favorite combos. Red Dust, this is one of Jean Harlow's best films, so I have this on here. Daughter of Shanghai, like I mentioned, this movie is very groundbreaking because it has 2 Asian Americans in the lead, and Anna May Wong, right, the first really Asian American star in this movie. So it's one of those movies that's kind of like is very groundbreaking for its time, right? The fact that they actually used an Asian American in the lead role and not a white person portraying an Asian American. So I picked those 5. I mean, there's others. There's a lot of Shirley Temple films I didn't put in here as well. I also like the Three Stooges as well. But anyways, that's the 30s. 40s, Casablanca, of course. You might be wondering, where's Citizen Kane? So I like Citizen Kane. I mean, it's obviously considered one of the greatest movies of all time, but it's not in my top 5 favorite movies just because I like film noirs a lot, right? So you can see that the 40s is going to be mostly film noirs, right? So Maltese Falcon, Humphrey Bogart, right? The definitive film noir guy. The Big Sleep, The Killers, is all film noirs. I could even list more like White Heat and like other movies like that from the 40s as well. But Notorious, right? That would be another one. But yeah, I'm just going to stop at this because the rest of the list from the 40s could just be film noirs because I love film noirs so much, right? And It's a Wonderful Life because we have another Capra, James Stewart kind of collaboration right here. And it's just a feel-good movie, right? Yeah, these other ones, Miracle on 34th Street, like I mentioned as well, good feel-good film. But these are my top 5 from the 40s. And then the 50s, which could be just mostly film noirs, right? 50s is where we actually start to get a lot of good films, right? And we could find them a lot easier. That's why it becomes like a top 12 now. So 50s, there's just so many. Like I had to narrow it down to just 12, but it was really, really difficult, right? In a Lonely Place, right? One of Humphrey Bogart's best films and very underrated. Rebel Without a Cause. This is the representative James Dean film. I didn't want to put too many films here that were starring the same director or same actor because I want to have some variety. But Rebel Without a Cause, obviously the most famous James Dean film. I could have put East of Eden. I could have put Giant as well. But yeah, Rebel Without a Cause. Rear Window is my representative Hitchcock film because it's my favorite Hitchcock film. I actually put 2 Hitchcock films on here. So Rear Window and North by Northwest were my picks for the Hitchcock films. I know some people might be asking, where's Vertigo? Well, Vertigo is a great film as well. But, you know, I can only pick a few because I only have 12 spots on here. I didn't want to fill them with like Hitchcock films and stuff, right? So anyways, I picked Rear Window, North by Northwest on here. You know, Vertigo, great film, right? But I like these films just a little bit better. Dial M for Murder could have been on here as well, but yeah, I picked these 2. And then A Place in the Sun, great film. Montgomery Clift, Elizabeth Taylor, right? Sunset Boulevard, another great one. Sabrina is my representative Audrey Hepburn film because I love Audrey Hepburn, but I think this is actually her underrated film. She has like Roman Holiday. She has some other good ones in the decade too, but I picked Sabrina here. African Queen. This is, another Bogart film, and Katharine Hepburn as well. So great one. On the Waterfront is my representative Marlon Brando film on here. Could have put The Wild One or Streetcar Named Desire as well, but On the Waterfront is probably my pick here. The Searchers, right, is my representative John Wayne film on here, right? Could have picked some other ones too, but I went with The Searchers because it's a classic film. It's a great film. And Akiru is my representative Kurosawa film on here. You might be wondering, where's Seven Samurai? Well, yeah. I like Seven Samurai, but I'm going to put Akiru here a little bit ahead of Seven Samurai because just like I said before, I like the focus on the family dynamic and just the odes to what people go through in life, right? Rather than just another, rather than the Western stuff, which I'll get to in the 60s, right? So, Some Like It Hot. This is my representative Marilyn Monroe film. I mean, she's got some other good ones. 7 Year Itch, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. I've watched those as well. Those are pretty good as well. But I think generally Some Like It Hot is considered her best film. So I think that's why I put it there. So yeah, that's the 1950s. 1950s was a really good decade for films. So it's really hard to narrow this down, right, to only 12 films, because there's so many good films that decade. It's definitely one of my favorite decades for films, right? Especially classic films. When I go back, I watch all the Technicolor stuff. 1950s, that's where I go to. Like, still to this day, like, I want to somehow have that 1950s aesthetic. To me, that's like the classic era, right? So yeah, 1950s, so many iconic stars from that time, classic, right? People will consider, wow, so classy, right? That's the 50s for you. All right, so going on to the 60s. 60s also a pretty good decade for movies. Got the Magnificent Seven, because I don't have Seven Samurai in the 50s. I didn't put that in my top 12, so I'm going to have the Magnificent Seven, of course, the remake of Seven Samurai. And then Who Shot Liberty Valance, which is a classic John Wayne, James Stewart film. I've got to have that there as well. The Graduate, that's a classic as well. Breakfast at Tiffany's, probably Audrey Hepburn's most well-known movie, so got to have that. And then got 2 Kubrick films in here. 2001, A Space Odyssey, and Dr. Strangelove, right? So there's a lot of good Kubrick films to choose from. Of course, I can only limit myself to a few, just like with Hitchcock, right? I don't want to just put all their films in the for my picks, right? Because there's too many good films. So Kubrick's like Hitchcock. It's just one of my favorite directors. So yeah, I'm just going to put 2001 and Dr. Strangelove here. Those two generally considered 2 of his best. Could have also put Lolita and Spartacus, but yeah, I'm going to go with these 2. The Hustler, right, with Paul Newman. Yojimbo, of course, another great Kurosawa film. Inspired a lot of, actually inspired the next film on this list, which is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which is considered generally the best out of that trilogy, the Fistful of Dollars trilogy. So yeah, I'm going with that. And then Lawrence of Arabia, of course, all-time classic, Dr. Zhivago, and gotta choose a James Bond film, so I went with Goldfinger as well. And then there's some other ones that didn't mention here, but Bullet, right? Some Steve McQueen movies was pretty good. How the West Was Won, right? That one I didn't mention before, but that's a pretty good movie as well. So those epic westerns, right? Those are all pretty good. And there's some other good films too. I forgot to mention the 50s. So Grace Kelly, I forgot about Grace Kelly. She's actually one of my favorite actresses. But yeah, she's in Rear Window. That's one of her best movies. But she also has High Society, To Catch a Thief, right? Those are some good ones. I even missed some musicals. Singing in the Rain, right? That's a classic one. How a Star Was Born. A lot of the Road to trips in that era, right? They've made a bunch of films. I was like Road to Bali, Road to this other exotic place, and they put Bing Crosby and Bob Hope in there, right? So those are some pretty good musicals as well. In the 60s, you had Sound of Music, right? That was classic. And then you got West Side Story, right? So those are pretty classic musicals as well. All right, and then I have some not critically acclaimed but extremely funny ones. What's Up, Tiger Lily? This is actually Woody Allen's first directorial debut. Very, very funny movie. I think it's very it's very original as well, right? So I highly recommend that film. Not many people know about it. And Casino Royale. This is not so when people think about Casino Royale, they think of the 2006 James Bond movie with Daniel Craig in it, but this is a different one. So originally, another company wanted to make a James Bond film, but they didn't get the rights to it, right? So the same company which made all the James Bond movies in the 60s with Sean Connery in it, they had the rights to all the James Bond film. And the Casino Royale was made by a different company, different studio. So they didn't get the rights, but they still tried to make a James Bond film, right, without really being a James Bond film. So they kind of made it like a satire. So they decided to make like a comedy satire instead. So not a true James Bond film, but still pretty funny. So I would recommend this one to watch as well. Casino Royale. Again, not talking about the 2006 Daniel Craig film, talking about the 1960, I think 66, 67. This is the satire comedy film. Yeah, that was not a true James Bond film, but it was made by the company because, you know, they wanted to make something James Bond without having the actual license. All right, so going to 1970s, American Graffiti. I got some George Lucas stuff in here, obviously. So American Graffiti, Star Wars, A New Hope. I gotta have that, right? Classic. Enter the Dragon is my Bruce Lee pick. There's only one other Bruce Lee pick, which I think could be on here, which is Chinese Connection, which is probably my favorite. It's either Enter the Dragon or Chinese Connection. Enter the Dragon is Bruce Lee's most famous film, right? Chinese Connection is really good. I don't think Fist of Fury or Way of Dragon is as good as these two. So those two are not contenders. Game of Death is very original, but Game of Death, you know, Bruce Lee didn't get to finish that film. So it was kind of like a half-completed film, but the idea was really, really original. So yeah, got to go with Enter the Dragon. Alien, of course, all-time classic sci-fi film. Taxi Driver, another classic film. The Godfather, right? Godfather 2. These are two of the greatest movies of all time. The Rocky series, right? Start off with original Rocky in 76. Kind of launched Sylvester Stallone's career. Monty Python, The Holy Grail. This is a all-time classic comedy. Just like with Airplane and other comedies, I think it never really ages because the comedy is so classic. Jaws. This is my Spielberg selection. This is kind of Spielberg's first real blockbuster film, right? So Spielberg was an up-and-coming director at this time. He was actually friends with George Lucas. So this is when he actually started to come up with Jaws. 1941 is my second Spielberg pick. Not many people know about this movie, but it's a really good satire film, comedy satire film as well. So this one, not as famous, right? Not that famous, but I really do recommend it because it's a good film. So I think this was 79. It's kind of a Spielberg comedy satire film. Barry Lyndon is my Kubrick pick for this decade. There's also a Clockwork Orange. Some people like. So I prefer Barry Lyndon because this is like the period drama, and Kubrick kind of proved that he can master kind of every genre with this, right? There's a lot of horror movies. I don't really watch horror movies that much, so I don't have Exorcist or Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Those are two horror movies that probably some people who like horror movies could have put on here. The Rocky Picture, what is it? The Rocky Picture Horror Show, that one. Yeah, could have been on here as well. It's kind of a cult classic movie, but don't have it on here. So not really into those kind of movies, but you know, I just want to mention those as well. Grease, right? That's another musical. Could have that on here as well. And Saturday Night Fever, but that's kind of more fun movies. Okay, and then not critically acclaimed but extremely funny movies. Kentucky Fried Movie and Amazon Woman on Mars, both directed by Robert Zemeckis, who would later do Airplane 2. Yeah, just the same classic kind of comedy, which I really like. So these ones I can still watch to this day, and I think they're pretty classic comedy. Not many people know about these movies, but they're pretty classic. Animal House is more well-known for sure. It's a more well-known comedy. That's there as well. All right, and then we have the 1980s, which a lot of good films are there as well. So Blade Runner, of course, the typical, the archetypal cyberpunk movie. Of course, another Ridley Scott film. The Empire Strikes Back, generally considered the best Star Wars movie. Back to the Future, the original, generally considered the best out of the trilogy. Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now, some people might prefer The Last Crusade, but I prefer Raiders of the Lost Ark, so I put that on here. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Again, I love this film because it's so original. Like putting animated characters in live action in the same movie was really groundbreaking for the time. And this is a good movie as well, right? On top of that, so Aliens, generally considered one of the best sequels of all time, along with Empire Strikes Back, right? Ghostbusters, the original one. Number 2 is good too, but yeah, the original one. Airplane, of course. Airplane is generally probably my favorite comedy of all time, actually, and this is a critically acclaimed one. It'll never get old. It's so funny, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is in it, so that's a plus. E.T., right? This is Spielberg's. He went to a level that beyond Jaws, right? So there's Jaws, and then E.T. took him to a whole nother level of blockbuster. So great film. My Neighbor Totoro is my Studio Ghibli pick for this decade. Could have been Grave of the Fireflies as well. Akira is another film I want to mention, another anime film I want to mention. But out of those, probably my anime pick is still going to be My Neighbor Totoro, which has now become the Studio Ghibli mascot, right? Totoro. Do the Right Thing, right? The Spike Jonze movie. all-time classic. Some of the coming-of-age dramas in this time period, the 80s had a lot of them. They had The Goonies, Lucas, I want to mention that one as well, right? 16 Candles, St. Elmo's Fire, right? I'm going to choose The Breakfast Club. It's one of the most well-known among that group, right, with the Brat Pack, right? Heathers is another one. Not sure if it's really considered coming of age, but it's definitely another one of those teen films as well. So yeah, those are kind of my favorites. Also, when you mentioned The Shining, I didn't mention The Shining because, again, I'm not into horror movies, but of course, Stanley Kubrick trying to master another genre. And he did master another genre, so The Shining has to be mentioned as well. Full Metal Jacket, another Kubrick film. Empire of the Sun is actually another Spielberg film, which I think is pretty underrated. And the original Terminator, right, with James Cameron. So yeah, those are just some other ones I want to mention. And the not critically acclaimed but pretty funny movies, Spaceballs is a really nice satire as well of Star Wars, obviously. Airplane 2 is a really good sequel to Airplane. Not many people know of this sequel, but most of you just know the original Airplane. But Airplane 2 is actually almost as funny as the original. Naked Gun, the whole series with Leslie Nielsen, very good. Caddyshack, another classic sports comedy, right? Then we go to the 90s. 90s is actually probably my second favorite decade for film after the 50s. So the 90s had a lot of good movies that really made you think. So I gotta have my Tarantino picks on here. So Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs, right? The classic Tarantino picks right here. Probably his two best, which was his first two, really. Then The Big Lebowski, right? Fight Club and The Matrix. All these movies kind of made you think about life, really. So those are good. The Shawshank Redemption's classic 90s film. Forrest Gump, another classic 90s film. My Spielberg picks right here, I got 3 Spielberg picks actually. Schindler's List, Jurassic Park, and Saving Private Ryan. So I got 3 Spielberg picks on here. Yep. And then Ghost in the Shell is my animation pick on here. So you might be wondering, why isn't there any Disney movies on here? Well, the thing about the Disney in the 90s, it was the Disney Renaissance. So they had a lot of good movies in the 90s. They had Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, which would probably be the pick if I were to choose a Disney movie from the decade. Tarzan, Hercules was my personal favorite. There's Mulan, right? Pocahontas, Hunchback. All these really good films in the decade. So all of them are good. I don't know if I would. I gotta choose 12, right? So it's hard to really pick one out of those. If I were to pick one, probably Lion King for its influence. But yeah, that's why I don't really have. I picked Ghost in the Shell actually over the Lion King, just because this is a pretty influential film in Japanese anime. So I know the Lion King was influential as well, but I don't know, it's hard to choose. Anyways, I just want to mention all the Disney films. I'm not leaving Disney out. I don't hate Disney. There's just, a limited number of spots I had to choose, okay? Yeah, if I were to choose a Disney film for the decade, probably Lion King. American Beauty, right? I could have also put Sixth Sense in here. Sixth Sense was also good. Goodfellas, also good. But I'm going to go with American Beauty here. I also like that film as well. Another good 90s one was Clueless, like I mentioned. Boogie Nights, right? That's another one from the 90s. And yeah, then there's the funny films, which I have Groundhog Day, watched that multiple times. Wayne's World, watched that multiple times. Office Space, watched that a million times. All really, really good funny films, yeah. Then 2000s, we got my animated pick from Studio Ghibli, Spirited Away. By the way, I didn't pick Princess Mononoke as well. I think Ghost in the Shell over Princess Mononoke in the 90s. But yeah, 2000s, Spirited Away over Howl's Moving Castle. And Spider-Man 2 and The Dark Knight are my superhero movie picks. There's also X2, I guess. X2 is a pretty good film. Some people consider that the best X-Men film. But yeah, I'm going with these two. The original Iron Man as well for the MCU, starting the MCU. Lost in Translation, I watched this tons of times. Good film. Up is my pick for the animated film from Disney Pixar. Yeah. Could have also been, what else could it have been? Up. I think yeah, it has to be Up. I can't really think of a better animated film in the decade. Yeah, I mean, there's some good ones like down here, Emperor's New Groove, right? That's a really funny film. Personally my favorite Disney film, but I can't say it's as good as Up, right? if you're talking about the critical acclaim. And then Mulholland Drive, I actually got 2 David Lynch films on here, Mulholland Drive and Inland Empire. Both of these good David Lynch films. Memento, that's my Christopher Nolan pick. Old Boy, classic Korean film right there. That's my Korean pick. Kill Bill is my Tarantino pick. There's also Inglourious Bastards, which is also good, but probably gonna go with Kill Bill. Shanghai Kiss is a really underrated movie. This is an indie movie. Not many people know it, but I relate to it personally, right? Because this is about an Asian American dude who can't choose whether his identity is between Asia and America. So for me, it kind of hits home, right? I can relate to it a lot. So I like it. It's a romantic. It's not a comedy. It's a romantic drama. So not many people know about it, but it's a good movie for me. Shanghai Kiss. So that's kind of a more personal pick. Not many critics even know about it. But yeah, I like that one. The Pianist, right? Another pick. Good movie as well. So yeah, that's the 2000s. Also want to mention Royal Tenenbaums as well. That's a Wes Anderson film. So that was good. Not sure if I would pick it over the Pianist, but it's close. Slumdog Millionaire, right? That's another one from the 2000s. And then there's some more fun ones like Mean Girls and stuff like that. But I think that would go down in this category here. So Austin Powers, Goldmember, very funny movie. I love Mike Myers. Rush Hour 2 is one of my favorites because I watch it over and over, right? Jackie Chan, Chris Tucker. Anchorman. The original 1 and 2 are both good, but the first one was better. Will Ferrell. And The Room. The Room is... Yeah, it's a movie you can watch over and over again. Definitely not critically acclaimed, but definitely a movie you can watch over and over again. Grandma's Boy, watched this tons of times. It's a cult classic as well. I know it didn't get very good critical acclaim, neither did The Room, but I mean, they're funny movies. I watch them over and over again. So, yeah. And then 2010s. I'm going to go with my Christopher Nolan picks. Inception and Interstellar here, I think are no-brainers for this decade. I guess there's also Dunkirk, but I'm going to go with these 2 for Christopher Nolan. Toy Story 3. There's a bunch of animated movies I could go on with here. Toy Story 4 was good as well. Big Hero 6 was one of my personal favorites for animated movies. Wreck-It Ralph, also really good. Inside Out, right? Could have gone with that as well. But yeah, I'm going to go with Toy Story 3 here. The Avengers, again, a lot of superhero movies I could have gone with. I could have gone with Logan, right? Or Days of Future Past. Those are considered 2 of the better ones from the decade. Captain America Winter Soldier, Thor Ragnarok, Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, and Joker, if you consider that a superhero film. Those are all pretty good ones. But I'm going to go with The Avengers. Life of Pi, one of the most visually stunning movies I've ever watched. Blade Runner 2049, same thing. One of the most visually stunning movies and one of the best soundtracks as well. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is probably one of my favorite comic book movies of all time. So yeah, I think it's either this one or another movie I didn't mention, but I think could have gone here is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which I think is a really good animated film, a really good comic book movie as well. But I'm still going to pick Scott Pilgrim, I think. I watched this so many times because it's so good. Just very funny, and the effects, the visual effects and everything is just really good. And all time, actually the cast, it was kind of like that Magnificent Seven in the sense that the cast in that movie pretty much all became famous in their own ways, right? But way before it happened. And The Social Network, Aaron Sorkin film, biopic, Lincoln, same thing. This is actually, except this is Steven Spielberg. But yeah, both of those are good. Wolf of Wall Street, I consider this one of Leonardo DiCaprio's best. I'd take this one over Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I would take it over Great Gatsby or Revenant. Yeah, so I pick Wolf of Wall Street. It's just a good one. And then my Korean picks are Handmaiden and Parasite. There's also what else? These are some pretty good Korean films in the decade too, like Pieta, Sunny. There's some good ones as well. But I'm gonna go with Handmaiden and Parasite. Snowpiercer is another good one as well. But yeah, there's only 12 spots, right? I can only choose 12. It's so hard to pick. What other films could have gone here? I guess Disaster Artist. Actually, in some ways, Disaster Artist I feel might have been better than The Room, because it's just a funny movie, and James Franco is so good in that movie. Moonrise Kingdom from Wes Anderson, again, just for the visuals. Black Swan, right? Really good film as well. Alita Battle Angel was a really good one. Ready Player One, right? These are all movies I watched over and over that decade. What else? Oh yeah, for the musicals, La La Land and Bohemian Rhapsody, right? Those are pretty good as well. But these are going to be my picks because I can only fit 12 in here, right? So anyways, guys, that is my picks for all-time favorite movies. And let me know if you agree, your picks or your comments. This is just kind of meant as an extra to the podcast because I didn't do a very good job of preparing for the podcast. So these are just my picks for the top 12 of each decade. Except for the 30s and 40s, those are just 5 each. But yeah, it's very, very hard to narrow it down. Like I said, I mentioned a whole bunch of other films that I could have put in there. And there's probably a lot I didn't mention as well, right? Probably a lot I forgot about. So yeah, just please let me know what are your favorite films for your all-time favorite movies. Tell me and tell Patrick. It would be interesting to hear you guys' opinions. So that's it, guys. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Yeah, so this was just an extra, and that's it.